For my final project, I'm analyzing Shakespeare's Measure for Measure play and how the women characters in this play are representative of the Renaissance values and how that ties into the way women are treated today and the issues that they face. So a summary of Measure for Measure. Duke Vincentio leaves Vienna. He's the Duke of Vienna, and he leaves Lord Angelo in charge. During this time, fornication is a sin, and that's sex before marriage. And Angelo's first act is to just make this law way more prominent. So he arrests Claudio, who is Juliet's fiance. Juliet is pregnant with his baby. They're not married, so he arrests him, sentences him to death. Isabella, his sister, becomes very sad, goes to Angelo to beg for his life. He says, okay, fine. Claudio can live if you have sex with me. She's obviously appalled. She immediately declines and goes to the jail cell to ask Claudio what she should do. She doesn't know what to do. Claudio immediately says, do it. You should just give up your chastity. You should save my life. Who cares? She is hurt by the way her brother doesn't feel for her values and her beliefs. During this entire time, the Duke has been dressed up as a friar. He never really left. He just wanted to see what was going on with everyone. And he comes up with a bed trick to save Claudio's life and Isabella's chastity. He says that Mariana, who is Angelo's ex-fiance, will sleep with him, which means that they would have to get married afterwards, according to his law. So Isabella would agree. Mariana would sleep with him, save Claudio's life. This doesn't actually happen. He still wants Claudio to die, orders him to die. Barnardine, who is supposed to be executed the same day, gets his head cut off first, is sent as Claudio to Angelo. He believes it, so he thinks Claudio's dead. At the end, the Duke comes in and tells everyone they're okay. Juliet can be with Claudio again. Isabella has kept her chastity intact, and everyone is all good. So, the main characters are Isabella, Angelo, Mariana, and Juliet and the Duke. And Isabella is a nun. She's part of the upper class. Well, she's going to be a nun. She's part of the upper class, and she does not talk much during the play. Claudio gets arrested for fornication. She's Isabella's brother, Julia's fiance. And the Duke leaves, but is disguised as a friar, comes up with the bed trick, which is what we just talked about, and helps kind of mend everything in the end. Angelo is put in charge when the Duke leaves. He's overly cruel and hypocritical, which you could see before. He asks Isabella to give up her chastity and her maidenhead after he just punished Claudio for doing that same thing. Mariana is Angelo's ex. She lost all her dowry, and she's an important contributor to the bed trick. We're going to talk about how the women are representative of the values, and then how the men dismissed women during this time. So, Isabella really only spoke spoke in two scenes during this play, which was weird because she is the main woman character, and she only talks twice. So, if that doesn't tell you how women are kind of treated during this time period, well, yeah. During the plea for her brother's life with Angelo, and when she told her brother about the offer he made her, so really only in the beginning is when she talks. When she talks with fierceness and emotion and expression of rejection to both of the men who were trying to make her give up what our deep-rooted her beliefs are. She says that she would rather be beaten and tortured rather than give up her chastity, and this shows that she's strong in her beliefs and her values, and no matter what. At the end of the play, the Duke returns, everyone's with their significant other, and the Duke asks Isabella to marry him right after he tells her that Claudio is alive. She does not speak the whole time during this proposal, and the Duke actually says her vows for her. It is never really determined if she's speechless because she's happy about the marriage, which would not be my guess, or if she kind of knows her place as a woman, doesn't say anything, and knows that if she would reject a proposal from the Duke, that would be very looked down upon, because women were seen as, you should be married during this time. That's your job. Your job is to marry a husband. This just further shows how women are supposed to succumb to masculine control during this time. Mariana was dumped by Angelo after her dowry was lost in her brother's ship. Angelo saw her as worthless if she had no money to give him, which shows his disrespect of women. Mariana was very determined to help with the bed trick, which is unknown because as soon as she lost all her money, he kicked her to the curb because she couldn't give him money or power, and that is the only thing that men cared about during this time. Juliet, who is pregnant with Claudio's child, is not being punished, but instead she's sent to jail to remain healthy and safe during this time. She gives birth in prison, and we do not see her at all until the end of the play, where she's freed and told that she can go be with Claudio. The lack of lines kind of represents how women did not speak much. They were not supposed to say what they felt or show what they did. Everything was kind of influenced and told to by men. Mistress Overdone, who we didn't talk about yet, but she runs a brothel, and it's closed down, and that is kind of where she's the head of all these prostitutes. She goes to start one outside Vienna. She feels like she's treated unfairly because she sees her brothel as an economic opportunity rather than a moral undoing, which is kind of what Isabella and Angelo think of that. So, Angelo treated Isabella with disrespect. He used his power and cruelty to punish people for fornication, but then asked Isabella to sleep with him. Hypocritical. They were not married, and she was about to become a nun. He used his power to hang the life of her brother over her head to get what he wanted. He used her brother to marginalize her and to force her into doing something she didn't want to do because he was more powerful, because he believed he was more powerful. He also marginalized Mariana. He kicked her to the curb as soon as she was worth nothing, which doesn't seem very good. He didn't want to marry her for love, just for what she could give him. Claudio marginalized Isabella. When Isabella is in distress about Angelo's offer, she goes to visit her brother in prison. He then tells her to give up her chastity to save his life. As a man, he believes his life is worth more than anything to do with a woman. Her values, her deep-rooted beliefs, he does not care about. He just wants his life to be saved. He doesn't want to die. And he has the guts to tell her this because that's just kind of how it was during this time period. Men were supposed to be higher up and worth more. The Duke marginalized Isabella because he got back and he punished Angelo. He got everyone back together, and it was great. And immediately after he told her that her brother was alive, he asked her to marry him. Like, she owes him something. It was kind of phrased like that. And that's very disrespectful and kind of what was expected, though, of women. Men thought that they could do favors and get gifts in return and get favors done for them in return, and they felt worthy and deserving of good things when they were just doing their jobs. And Lucio, who is Kate's ex, Kate is a prostitute, Lucio had a child with her, and he is Claudio's best friend, not super important to the play, but just because it's important for later. She's a prostitute working for Mistress Overdone. When Lucio gets her pregnant, he was never punished for fornication because Angelo has not made the law more prominent yet. But when he had his child, he kind of kicked Kate to the curb because she was a prostitute, and he did not want to have anything to do with that. So, women who spoke their own thoughts and beliefs were very, very rare. They had ideas and values, but they were all influenced and created by men. Women did not speak their own original thoughts. Lower class women were not really acknowledged at all, and upper class women were expected to remain respectful, elegant, proper. They were supposed to remain oblivious, do not say things that you do not know about. Women were expected to get married at the legal age was 15 during this time, or become a nun. There wasn't really in between for them. The independence and education and will of women, whether they were educated, had something going for themselves, wanted to be respected as a woman, didn't really matter because men knew they were more powerful. They kind of shrugged off because they knew that they were worth more. They believed that they were more powerful and that made them worthy of more. This is apparent in every single man in this play. Mistress Overdone runs a brothel in Vienna, and it gets shut down with Angelo's laws. This has to do with now because it is kind of what's happening in the women's movement. The women's movement consists of women's suffrage, reproductive rights, sexual harassment, equal pay, maternity leave, domestic violence, and in relation to this play, the regulations and the rights of sex work. Mistress Overdone and Kate would have a way more fighting chance if they were here now in today's world, because feminists and women in this movement believe that it's their choice whether they want to work like this. It might be safer for them than other jobs. It might be easier for them to get pay. And they should have the right to choose that if they wanted to. Other characters like Juliet, Claudio's fiance, is pregnant before she's married. During this time, that was believed to be a sin. In later times, it was kind of more accepted. As the century moves forward, as with Isabella, who's expected to become a nun or get married, there's kind of more balance for women these days. You don't have to be celibate and you don't have to be married when you're young. Premarital sex is not, fornication is not as looked down upon unless a specific religion says so, or if you have harsh parents. But it is more widely known sociably. Women are still expected to settle down and start a family. That is a huge thing that's still going on. That is kind of what women are expected to do. That's their job. You know, when you get older, you get married and you have kids. And that is still very prominent in today, but it's not forced like it used to be in the Renaissance period. And Kate also faces a lot of criticism for her actions. Working as a prostitute really just kind of gets her shunned out of the community, especially having a kid during that time. She is seen as dirty, so her kid therefore is dirty, and a lot of prostitutes have children and are looked down upon because they had children. And in relation to that, a lot of women today are single mothers, and they are looked down upon because of that. And they're expected to be less of moms, or like it's some big word or it's some big work that they have to do, and that's not really how it is. So that is how Measure for Measure relates to the Renaissance period and the time period now.